this is this question from Dan on the forum, which is an old question that I know you have you've wanted answers to yourself, given that you used to be a freelancer. It is what we call the freelancer problem. The freelancer problem you can also call it's the client. It's kind of like a creative agency problem. So the current Johnny Decimal system has it's designed to limit how many things you can have. That's one of the points of it, right? And when we start at the top level, we have areas. And at the first top level of our project, you can only have 10 areas. That's the whole point of Johnny Decimal. You get 10 areas, and then within each of those 10 areas, you then get categories, and you get at most 10 of those. So you have at most 10 things at the top, and then you have at most 10 things in each of those, and you actually try and minimize those things so you don't use all 10. And the restriction of that system is one of the things that actually helps you stay organized. Yeah? And just because we'll come back to it in a moment, then what you have, let's draw it up here, you've got areas and categories, and we draw out these numbers like 1, 2, and then we'd use the decimal point, and then you have your IDs, 3, 4. And that's your Johnny Decimal ID. And in this structure, the first part gives your system structure, but we don't actually store anything there. Remember, you don't store anything in your area folders or in your category folders. And then the second part is where you store things. So that's your content. So we have structure dot content, if you like. And this structure, by design, is limited to 100 things. You can't have more than 100 things. So that's cool in a normal world when you're trying to organize a whole bunch of chaos. But it falls down when you have clients and projects and jobs, because it's very natural. Firstly, they just don't fit in this 10 by 10 because you've got more than 10 clients, but I've done like a step thing where you've got 10, then 10. If I just said you could have 100 clients, that might not be so bad, but then you wouldn't really have any structure there. But you might also have, it's possible you've got more than 100 clients. You might have more than 100 jobs if you're running little small jobs. So we need to figure out a way to extend the system. Now, you got to remember, the numbers were invented, like the numbers are just kind of nice, really, in this. I think in this future system, the one I'm going to describe, we might need to focus a bit less on the numbers. Okay, the other interesting thing about the Johnny Decimal is it takes the alphabet away from you, again, by design, because it doesn't matter what order the alphabet's in, because things are named ambiguously anyway. It could be budget, could be finance, could be expenses. Nobody remembers that. It could be accounting. And that's what the numbers do for you. They lock things spatially in your world. So 10, 20, 30. 30 is always going to be 30, even if the thing you create at 40 is alphabetically before 30, because your brain doesn't care. You just want to remember where something is. But when we're talking about clients, let's use the first client we do business with is Zacmico. Right? Starts with a Z. And so the thing is with clients, with the thing that I just talked about with you, having ambiguous naming, accounts and budgets and finance and whatever, that is ambiguous. See my latest blog post about the naming of recipes, right? Recipe names are ambiguous. Did I call it chicken or shawarma or Lebanese or whatever? Zacmico, you're never going to forget the name of a company because it's the name of the company. You might, when we get on in a moment, the names of projects are similarly ambiguous. And in 2 years, you might not remember the exact name of a project because you might have named it after the thing you were designing, or you might have named it after some other thing at the time, or it might just have had some internal code name. So projects are ambiguous, but the names of companies are not. And so I think at the first level of the new system, when we're flipping this a bit, and what we're going to call it is client project. I'm going to use client project as a little shorthand, because that's what we're going to do here. Instead of area category, we're replacing that with client project. And I think you should organize your clients alphabetically, because if we have aardvarks co up here, and I haven't left myself Syzygy, however one spells Syzygy co down here, and in here all of the other letters of the alphabet fit. When you come into your file system and you want to find Zacny co or aardvarks co, what's easier?
Yeah, this is easier for sure.
Just use the alphabet. Perfect. So that said, we would still like to use these numbers because they're handy for other things. It's handy having a number assigned to a thing, although I think we might de-emphasize them here, but let's see. So what we're going to do is Zacny co still gets a number. It's still sequential, and this is our first client. And I typically put Johnny Decimal numbers in square brackets when they aren't just at the beginning. You'll see that through the site, and I use this in my email subjects, for example. And we're going to allow ourselves 100 clients in this scheme, because I think if you have more than 100 clients, that's pretty extreme, and you probably need some sort of custom software to manage them. You're not just saving 100 clients. Does that seem fair as a freelancer? 100 is a lot.
It is a lot, even if you're in business for several years.
Yeah, well, you're getting a new client every 2 weeks, and yeah. Anyway, you could extend this to 3 numbers, but let's not worry about that for now. So Zacny co is number 0, 1, and we're going to put it in square brackets after the company so that it sorts by the Z. Let's bring aardvark back in. So aardvark co is the second company we create. And so it gets number 2, and so on. And so in your file system, they sort by the alphabet. You had asked me yesterday, you said, what if I do want to sort them by this?
Yeah, what if I want to know who the old ones are? Or...
What if you want to know who the old ones are? Or one of the nice things about the Johnny Decimal is that things that were created together, grouped together. So in this, once you've stopped using a client for a while, once they kind of fall off the top of the list, although it's by creation, not last use, but anyway, how do we group these together? And what I realized was, I tried thinking about some weird scheme about how to use these numbers, but then we've got computers, they do a lot of things for us, and one of the things your computer does for you is record the date that a thing was created. So if you go into your file system, this is the name of the folder or file or whatever, and it's not shown by default, but you can trivially add it. It's called date created. It's the same on Mac and Windows. And your operating system records a file stamp for when that thing was created. And you can just add this as another column and click on it, click to sort. And then if this was created on the 1st of January and this was created on the 2nd of January, then that sort will sort by that. So we'll do a little demo of that. So that solves that problem quite neatly. So by default, your operating system probably shows you date modified as one of the columns when you're browsing files. It's very easy, and I'm on a Mac, it's exactly the same on Windows. If you right click in the column header here, you can just add date created. If you want to be neat and tidy, you can take date modified off there. It should remember this per view. And now you can just sort on any of these column headers by clicking on them. So we can sort by date created. And you can see that's now ordered our things by number because that's the order that we created them in. And if we want to go back to the alphabet, we just click on them. And now there we are, sorted by the alphabet. Okay, so we've got clients. Aardvark, Belinda, our beloved chicken. She has a company. Belinda and Zacny. 1, 2, 3, whatever. Now each of these, and this is a folder in your file system as well. We'll do a little mock-up of this. When you start work and you open your files, this is what you see. 3 folders, Aardvark, Belinda, Zacny. Let's say you want to work on the Belinda project. So you click that and you go into another folder. Now, this is clients. Now we're into your projects. And in fact, we will bring this up now because Lucy's question is, what if I have another thing in the middle here, which is products? In Lucy's old world, she had a client and they had a product, and each product had a project.
It's the way that everyone stratifies things in that world.
And I think the answer is you just add another folder. You just do this again. I think your numbers might just get a bit out of control there, but again, in that world, yeah, we'd have to. Let's think about it at the end of this. So projects now, clients we agreed to sort by the alphabet because that's how we remember them, and projects we've agreed not to. We've agreed that projects can be ambiguously named. In 3 years, you'll never remember the exact name of a project, like you will remember the exact name of a company. They're just different. So projects, we're going to go back to the thing where we put a number at the front. So the first project is just 01, and let's just call it P1, project 1. 02 is your second project, project 2, whatever name it is, it doesn't matter, right? And then so on and so forth. And in this scheme, you get 99 projects down to project 99. So far, let's use another colored pen. The structure we've built, that's 01 for Belinda. So Belinda's company name is company number is 01, which we put in square brackets. So we've got 01, and let's say we're referring to project number 02. So we've got the 01 from here, and we've got the 02 from here. And so in our structure.content, where previously we had areas and categories and then an ID, now we've got clients, projects, and an ID. We're still to the left of the decimal. And for this particular project, we are therefore in 0102. That's that decimal. 0102, the 01 identifies it as a Belinda client. All the Belinda clients will start 01. And this is just, by now, this is just an abstract number. This isn't the number in your file system because we've done this flipperoo. But you might choose to use this number elsewhere in your notes, for example. Right, and that's the 01 ties all of those clients together. And the 02 is this project. So now we're in this project. And like I say with the standard area category thing, once you're in a category, that is as organized as you need to be. You don't need to be any more organized, because being more organized than being in a category, we get a bit carried away.
I think I can see what you're going to do now. I'm excited.
You like it? So the implication is now we just put an ID on the end. So now we're in project 2. Let's really put a big border around this. This is where we are, right? We're in Belinda project 2. I have to delete this other stuff to give myself some room. And what do we do? What have we got left available to us? We've just got 100 IDs. And we use a decimal, and we start at 01. You can start at 00 if you want. And we run down and we go down to .99. So there is no further organization in here. We don't have folders of things. We don't have things of things of things. But, so A, that's simpler, right? You're in that project and you've got 100 things to deal with. But what I would suggest would be to aggressively look to find a standard structure for this. Don't make this up every time. You're a freelancer in a particular part of the world, as in a particular job function, right? Your jobs are all the same or similar. You've always got the original quote for the job. You've always got the spec. You've always got the mood board. You've always got the copy. You've always got the artwork. So don't make them up every time. What I would suggest would be you probably have about 20 things that are always the same, and you don't have to use them, right? Even if you've assigned them, you can just skip them if it's not applicable to the job. So 01 is the quote for job. 02 is always the budget. 03 is always the copy. 04 is always the artwork. 05 is always the whatever. You create this once, you stick it in a template folder, and you just copy paste it into every job. And I suspect 19 things. I think if you allocate the top 19 And then, like I say, if you don't have to use them in every job, you can copy the folders over and just delete them if you don't need them, which gives you from 20 down to freestyle. And that gives you 80 things which are really job specific that you can keep. And again, as the usual Johnny Decimal rules, these will clump in order of creation because you're just assigning them linearly. Let's say then for this Belinda project, the copy file, we've now ended up with O1, O2, which is structure, dot, and let's say copy is always O3 equals copy doc. And the point of having this number is being able to use it and reference it elsewhere if you need to. Although I suspect in this sort of world, it feels like you live in your file system. It doesn't feel like do you take notes and things much?
I should have.
Yeah.
But if it was today, I would use the full Johnny Decimal thing with email and notes and stuff. But I never used to because I was not organized.
Yeah, that's a good one as well up the front. I use the zeros for, and there's a post on the site about this. I use the zeros for things like an inbox. So I actually use 01 as my inbox, where I really do, it's like instead of dropping it on the desktop, which is just pure raw chaos, right? Instead, I've got a file and I'm like, I need to put it somewhere and I just can't think at the moment. Rather than putting it on your desktop, at least if you assign 01, we're getting a bit off topic here, but if you assign 01 as your inbox for this project, at the very least, it's not your desktop. I generally assign, you can assign like 02, all the zeros, right? 02 might be your notes. And so you always know what your notes file is going to be, right? And then just keep just one file's worth of notes. I wouldn't bother keeping hundreds of notes per project, perhaps. Because again, you're getting a bit too organized there. You're getting to the point where everything is so granular. Because that's the trick with this. You want to find the balance of granularity so that when you get to the thing you were looking for, there's not still too much there, but not being too granular so that everything's just got one thing in it and you spend your whole life clicking back, clicking down, clicking back, clicking down. So there's a balance there. Thoughts? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I think that would work for me. I'd have to fiddle with it, my old world. Yeah. I was wondering, because I'm trying to imagine other people's jobs in this new world that I have no idea about. And I can imagine sometimes if you do get comfortable with a client, sometimes you might end up having like 2 main clients and they feed you heaps of work. Yeah. And I can imagine burning through 100 small projects. Yeah. And I was wondering, would it be still appropriate to say name that folder Belinda 2023, and then if you do burn through 100 little jobs, maybe you do 100 separate videos or something, and do Belinda 2024 as a client. Would that be a way to handle that, or is that not great?
I don't mind that. The concern with that is, and it's not a massive one, when you want to find something in a few years, how do you remember which year you did it in?
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, how often do you really do that?
For someone like me, I wouldn't have had, it would take a few years to burn through 100 projects, for sure.
And that's it. By the time you've done that, I think you're okay just to start another one, yeah. And again, think of the golden rule. The golden rule is, as always, as long as you, because all these numbers are all really just fancy, right? Numbers, who cares about the numbers? The whole thing's called Johnny Decimal, but the point is, as long as you can find your stuff when you need to. Look, we just made this new scheme up, right? Twist this as much as you want. If putting a year in and starting a new client helps you because you can remember them, do it. Doesn't matter. That as long as you can find your stuff later reasonably quickly and with no stress. Because that's the thing as well I find with this. It's the stress of, for me, when I go later to find a thing and immediately I'm just like, I'm instantly triggered because I don't know where things are and things are chaos and things are a mess. If it takes you, and in fact, this is something else we need to do a little post on. Remember I said the other day, I think we're so used to in this world expecting that we should find something instantly. because that's Google, right? If it's not in the first 4 results of Google, you almost give up. Like, you never click page 2. Nobody ever. It's true. We do not click the second page of search results. We expect to find something immediately. And this helps you find things more quickly. But I still think the expectation that you find something immediately is unrealistic and is harming us. And what you should do when you come to your system to either save or find a thing is just to calm down a bit, right? Slow down and think for a moment. Okay, and I do this. This is how I realize this is the thing, because I find myself doing this, right? If I can't find it instantly, I'm just like toys are out the pram. Well, just slow down, look at the things, go to your index, have a look through your index, stop a minute. And if you're trying to find something, I had this yesterday, I'd moved a file and it was just a screenshot and I just couldn't find it. And instantly I'm like, I know it has to be somewhere. Just wait a minute, use your system. If you need to generate a new number, go to your index, generate a new number. That might take 1 minute, but it's not going to be instantaneous. And I think we're conditioned to that, and I think it's hurt us. I've just realized I've printed out, this is Dan's original blog post here, so I'm just going to, so the natural client project hierarchy gets lost in the project-based system. So I think that was the idea of this. We've brought back a natural client project hierarchy. And so to answer your question about products, you could just put product in the middle here. And then it's up to you to decide how many numbers. I'd probably stick with 2. So you're still going to end up with 0, 1 for Belinda. And then the first product, you might choose to use letters. I don't know, again, whatever works for you. By this point, we're freestyling, right? So if you've got a product, if it helps to use numbers again, I feel like we're going to get a bit stuck up in numbers here. Like if your first product's going to be 01 and your first project's going to be 01, or 1 feels a bit clunky and not memorable. I don't know, maybe like a product feels like a client in that you will remember it. It's definite, especially in your old world and in many of our worlds, I guess. Products are things, they're real, they're tangible, they're produced, they hang around for years, they're not arbitrarily named, you don't forget their names. So there's an argument here. You could potentially, let's say your product is the Zygote product, you could use, is that an X or off? XY, whatever, right? You could use ZY there, end up with 01, ZY 01, dot, whatever, and have a 3-tiered, by this point, if you are doing this with, you've got, which is perfectly reasonable, this is the world you used to live in. If you've got a 3-tier system before the decimal, we're in structure world, then I think your concern should be more about the tiers here and less about inventing some number that you're going to use elsewhere. At this point, the decimal part of Johnny Decimal and the numbers almost feels like it should fade into the background a bit, and we should just have a good, solid structure at the beginning, and then perhaps use the numbers afterwards. Here, just forget this whole decimal concept, just have folders that are very clear, that take you where you need to be, and then have this template structure at the end, perhaps.
That could be right for you, yeah.
And you could still have this number, you still have a number if you really need it, you can still keep putting numbers in brackets after things, but you might not, because now we're getting a bit on, now we're going to end up with, your 31st client's 17th product and the 14th project you do for them, dot, the copy file is 03. Is that really very useful?
No.
I don't think it is.
Because, the first 2 are more about the alphabet. That's how you remember them.
Yeah. In which case let's do, what was the first? Belinda. So let's do BL Zygote X BLXY project number 14.03. That might work for you.
See,
Wait, again. We're juggling there.
I completely forgot about the concept of job codes, which in my world kind of does that already, because
that's right.
All agencies do it slightly differently, but you get the gist of it.
Yeah.
But usually there's 3 or 4 letters at the start of every job and then 3 or 4 numbers. and they will delineate client and product for
Yeah.
you. But they will be slightly different between whoever makes them, but it does give you enough information to do that. So maybe I don't need the product if I just pay more attention to the job code
Yeah.
and put that in the projects folder instead, or because that will sort as well, although they often are bad at making codes. So
And that's kind of gets to that point where if you're at this level of complexity, you've almost certainly got or need an actual software system to manage this. Because now we're getting to the point where if you're running some agency and you don't have a system already, you need to call an IT person and get someone in to do this properly. Because this is too complicated to just freestyle yourself. You're a real company at this point. Like, what are you doing? Here we are.
right, so the finished product.
Yes.
So we have
Let's just explain where we are first.
Yeah.
Because your first question was, I've got all of these folders and files that we've already seen in a previous little video. And Lucy's first question was, but where are they?
where am I
in the world?
I was wondering if I need to put this within my own personal Johnny Decimal system in an area titled freelance work. And then Johnny's told me that no, you keep this separate.
Yeah, so where I am at the moment, I'm just in my documents folder. You can put this anywhere. You'd probably realistically want it on some sort of server. My documents is in my iCloud. But the point is, I've got other Johnny Decimal systems. There's my personal one. There's the Johnny Decimal website. And this is just a whole nother world. Really strictly speaking, you can see I've gone through the different schemes here. DO1 is the project. When you look at multiple projects, 13.01 on the website. DO1 is the project name for Johnny Decimal website. I wouldn't mind doing that, like Business One or FO1, my freelance business, because that allows you to put that at the front and then. Anyway, so within there.
So
yes,
now we have our list of clients that's alphabetical.
and
then in square brackets afterwards, we have the numbers in which they became our clients, the order.
Yep. And just to be clear for everybody, we're in a different view here. We're in column view. If you want to go to the other view where I could use the different columns as per the previous video, that's list view, but Lucy prefers column view. I do mostly for day-to-day stuff. So what we've got is at the top level, which in a classic Johnny Decimal system would be your areas, 10 to 19, 20, 29, so on. We've replaced areas with clients. And before the decimal, we're in structure world. So AC for areas categories has become clients projects. So this is the first level, clients by alphabet with the number. And then inside there, we've got projects. These are our projects. I've just made up a bunch of random numbers. So this is the first project, the second project, the third project. We put the number at the start of those because the project name is arbitrary and you won't remember it in a couple of years. So that you want these to group by created, like a more normal Johnny Decimal system.
Yep. And then within that, we have our standard folder templates based
Yes.
on what we do.
Yes, what we do. So what I've got at the top of my system, I've made templates. It starts with an underscore, so it will alphabetically sort at the beginning, and it was the first folder that I created, so it's also 00. So these are the standard things that I do on every job. So now these are my IDs in Johnny Decimal world. We're after the decimal. This is your actual content. No content before the decimal, only content after the decimal. And what I've done is I've created those. These are the things you do on every job. And I've just copied them to each new project. Now so when I create a new project, 09 Aardvark 2024, right? That's the newest Aardvark project. What I'll do is I'll just copy all of those and I'll drag them into that. And that's how it gets its stuff.
And they're your base folders there. And as we said before, like you might have a few other folders after number 10 because there might be some quirks about Aardvark 24.
That's right. After whatever. Keep your own structure and decide how many of these you'll have. Now, what I've done in here, I've filled a few of these out. For example, this particular project, you might not need just stay there, yeah. You might not need every one of your template folders. in which case delete them. Don't leave empty folders hanging around, because that'll just confuse you. If you don't use a thing, just delete the folder. Here, what I've done, and it's personal preference, it's a tiny bit more work, it's up to you. Think about Johnny Decimal World. We don't just have an ID folder called 01, it's called 36.01. And so the equivalent in this world is the number of the client and the number of the project before the decimal. 0605, that identifies this client, this project. Everything that starts 06 is Aardvarks. 0605 is this particular project. And then these are our template folders with the numbers, and I've put 0605 decimal before every one of them, turning this more into what you would more think of as a Johnny Decimal ID, but with this updated 4-digit client project instead of area category at the beginning.
Okay.